magazines. Jenna Sowers, co-founder of the Model Alliance, is in New York. Also, former supermodel Carrie Otis. She is the author of the book Beauty Disrupted, a memoir. Now, Carrie began modeling as a teen. Carrie knows the dark side of the business, and she joins us by phone. Ladies, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's definitely a conversation worth having because, as I said, I think that it affects women and girls who will actually never ever be considered a model. Carrie, what is your reaction to this move?
I think it's a great step in the right direction. I'm thrilled to hear it, and I think it's a great step in the right direction, and it's a long time coming.
You know, when you think back to some of the really painful, really abusive experiences you had as a young model, did you think that a move like this would ever come?
No, actually I didn't. You know, we've all talked about it amongst ourselves and thought about it, but it seemed impossible to factor in to the industry and to the demands in the industry. And I think it was Christy Clemens that said, you know, the editor of Australian Vogue, she said something so important is that if we look really deep into this, sample sizes are such an issue. So, you know, this is one step, but there's also a lot of different pieces that still need to come together. But I'm really, again, so happy to hear this news.
You know, Jenna, I know with the Model Alliance, these are the kinds of things you have been fighting for such a long time. And some of the details that came out in the statement, it says we will be ambassadors for the message of healthy body image. We will encourage producers to create healthy backstage working conditions, what have you been doing behind the scenes for years to get the beauty industry to understand the significance of something like this?
Well, I mean, at the Model Alliance, we have spent a long time trying to sensitize people, particularly people in the industry, to the issue of models' age, because we feel that that's an issue that underlies a lot of other problems that models can face, like eating disorders, like vulnerability to sexual harassment, financial exploitation, high dropout rates. You know, when you have 14-year-old girls beginning a full-time career in an industry that can involve exposure to some very adult situations, you don't tend to get good outcomes for those girls. So, I mean, I can't stress enough how much we welcome this change, really. It potentially will be something that has a very profound effect on the industry.
So, listing some of those things that you just said, I mean, should the age be older than 16? I'd like both of you to weigh in on that. Carrie, you go first.
I do. I know who I was at 16, and I also think it's so important to give young women an opportunity to really invest in their education, develop themselves as individuals, find out who they are. And let's face it, you know, I'm 43, and you know this journey continues on. But a 16-year-old being expected to work is a challenge, and I think there's a level of maturity that needs to happen, and kids need to be kids when they're kids. And you know, you can look at the whole sort of premature sexualization that also goes on within the industry. I think that 16 is a good starting point. I think that it still is really young. I think the impact is not only on young women within the industry, but of course on the countless eyes of young women outside of the industry looking for sort of these indications of what's hip and cool and expected of them to look like. So again, it's a good starting point, but I think we still have a ways to go.
And Carrie, you touched on something I really wanted to get to. What is the connection between these young models who often appear so sexualized in pictures? What is the connection between that and how our young girls who are not models, how they are perceived in our culture and how they perceive themselves? Jenna, let me let you weigh in on that, and then I want Carrie to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think the fashion industry has a long way to go when it comes to providing women with healthier role models, especially from the point of view of body image. I mean, we're still talking professional models as a population. We're still talking about a group that is much, much taller than the average population and a great degree thinner. And also, it should also be pointed out, perhaps, the models tend to represent a fairly narrow idea about
not very diverse.
No, they're not very diverse. There's a strong preference among fashion clients for white models, you know, and that certainly doesn't reflect America, and it doesn't reflect the world.
Not at all. And Carrie, this affects, it shapes our culture, would you say, and it can affect how young girls grow up thinking about themselves. The media is very powerful.
Yeah, the media is powerful. I just wrote an article on Huffington Post about this, and it not only affects the way that young girls think about themselves, but it also affects the way that we are integrating in society, and men are looking towards these young girls and these women. The rates of sexual violence, the rates of abuse are skyrocketing globally. And for me, this is an issue so close to heart, and I do think that it is connected to the images that the media is pushing out there, and certainly the reckless, premature sexualized images that the media is putting out there. I think it's a dangerous game, and we're seeing its effects very, far and wide.
How much of it? How impactful do you think that this move will be, Jenna? How impactful can it be?
I think it should be pointed out that some of the fashion industry's attempts at self-regulation have had mixed results. Like any attempt at self-regulation, it depends on goodwill, and it depends on Vogue to keep its word. This isn't a law or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a bunch of Vogue editors saying we are going to do this in future. That being said, I mean, if they stick to it, this is a move that has the potential to have some wide reverberations through the industry, because many top clients, including top brands, other magazines, and other editorial clients, look to Vogue, particularly the foreign editions of Vogue, Vogue Paris and Vogue Italia, for their casting choices. And then they cast their campaigns, they cast their ads, they cast their other magazine shoots based on the models that have been picked by Vogue.
So they set the standard.
Exactly. If Vogue sets the standard, then I think the rest of the industry will have more reason to follow.
Carrie, I'll let you have the last word. Are you cautiously optimistic as well?
I am cautiously optimistic. I agree with Jenna. The impact that this could potentially have, because it is Vogue, because it is Condé Nast, can have a very wide, far-reaching impact. It sort of makes this wonderful, new, hip, subject. Those of us who have been crusades for women's rights and girls' rights within the industry kind of, I think, take pause, because there is still a lot to be seen. There's follow-through that must happen, and I will maintain the cautiously optimistic point of view over here, because this could be a wonderful step in the right direction.
I hope so. All right. Carrie, your book is Beauty Disrupted, a memoir, and Jenna Sowers with the Model Alliance. Ladies, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thanks.